Hello and good evening. My name is Rebecca Valera and I am live today. I just wanted to make a quick announcement for anyone who's watching this either now or whenever you watch the replay. I'm going to be doing this live streaming, trying to do it every single Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you are wanting to know more about Dallas, about what to do when you're trying to buy a home from out of state, or any other questions like that, I'm going to try to have some amazing guests lined up for the coming months and coming weeks. So this is going to be more of a regular thing that's going to be a part of my content. You'll see content that's going to be coming out. I'm also going to be experimenting with short videos. So it's a short form content in hopes to try to grow my channel as well from there. I know we have some people in the chat, but before we get to the chat, I want to introduce to you a good friend of mine. His name is Tristan Edmond, and I'm going to add him to the stream so he can talk a little bit about himself, why he's here, and we'll just kind of go from there. Oh, whoop. There we go. Hey.
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear. I can hear you. You're good.
Well, I'm Tristan Amond. I'm with Mindful Living Realty up here in Rapid City, South Dakota. We're on the west side of South Dakota. My wife and I, about 4 years ago, decided to do our own thing, and we opened up Mindful Living Realty, and we've been enjoying it ever since. So I met Rebecca on YouTube, of course. We've been doing some YouTubing lately, and it's just been a great adventure that we've had, and we look forward to more coming in the next few months.
Absolutely. So I don't know if I told you this story, Tristan, but I want to kind of tell our viewers a little bit of background to kind of get this show on the road and this show started. So when I was in middle school, I actually had a pen pal, and she lived in South Dakota. And we, conversed back and forth, and we exchanged letters. And one summer, we were writing, and we were like, well, let's go visit each other, meet each other in person, because we were really enjoying that. And so my mom allowed me for the first time to go on a plane by myself, and I flew to South Dakota, and I got to meet her family, and it was like 4th of July weekend. So it was really a lot of fun. We got to shoot off fireworks at the family farm. They took me to the Corn Palace. We drove through some of the Badlands. They had little carnivals and stuff set up. I think during the 4th, they probably had some like carnivals, little things that would kind of pass through certain towns. Don't ask me where in South Dakota. We did Mount Rushmore as well. So that was also another highlight.
The whole state. You would have crossed the whole thing.
We did.
Was over here. Mount Rushmore was over here. You went everywhere.
We went everywhere, and their family was so welcoming and loving, and they just kind of took me in as one of their own. And so, and we're going to talk a little bit about the culture in both Texas and South Dakota, so you can kind of get a feel. But I just wanted to kind of start with that story, because I think that I think it tells you a lot about the people from Texas and people from South Dakota and what kind of people they are in general. So, yeah. So I know that a lot of people want to know about the weather. So why don't you give us your weather update? Like, what's going on weather-wise in South Dakota for you guys right now? I'm sure they're curious.
Right now it's 55 degrees.
Okay.
Believe it or not. I hear Austin has some snow a couple days ago, right? So I was like, they got snow, we don't. That's all I'm saying. However, this, for us, 55 degrees. We're out short sleeve shirts. We're like enjoying the day. It's very unusual for it to be this warm in January. Usually we're sitting in the 20s. We have January, usually it's kind of the coldest month. We get a month of 0 degree temp, or a week of 0 degree temperatures, but it usually kind of hangs around that 20 degree time frame. The snow, we don't get a lot of snow, but it's usually hanging around. But not this year. It's been 40s and 50s for the past couple of weeks, which has been nice, but unusual for sure.
Yeah, that is a little bit unusual that Texas is getting snow and South Dakota doesn't have any.
Whenever we get warmer than Florida, which happens like every once in a while, I'm always talking to my people over there. I was like, look at this, we're warmer than you. Nah, nah.
No, the weather can be odd and funny. In general, though, I know you were talking about in January is probably your coldest month. Is that correct? And
Yeah.
then what do you kind of see for the rest of the year? How much snow do you usually get? And if something's really, really bad, when do they say we're shutting it down? Like,
What do you mean shut it down? That doesn't happen.
doesn't sure it does. I'm sure there's circumstances.
No question. So yeah, usually January is the coldest month. We move into February, it starts warming up just a little bit. March actually is kind of the toughest month of the year because we're ready for spring, and we have these little patches where it gets to be 60 degrees, and then next thing you know, we get 3 feet of snow. So we actually get more of our snow in March than we do any other time during the year, and that's usually the heavier snow, the actual snow that piles up that we can actually make snowmen with. Usually the other parts of the year is kind of that not very wet snow, and it's more about that snow blowing across the road that is an issue. I had friends that were coming up to look at South Dakota, and they were coming across the state of South Dakota from I-90 from Sioux Falls to Rapid City, and they got caught in a blizzard. And let me tell you, when in the plains of South Dakota, where there's nothing to stop the wind, and the snow gets blowing, it's quite an adventure for sure. But during that time, if it is bad enough, they will shut down I-90. They'll make sure everybody's staying home. I remember there was a couple times coming back from Thanksgiving in Minneapolis or Minnesota. We got stopped in Mitchell with an ice, like just thick ice hanging out on our cars. So we had to stop and wait for a day in Mitchell, South Dakota. So a lot of these kind of things happen. We usually only get shut down like in town a couple times during the year when there's a big enough blizzard, or and usually that comes up with its really, really cold wind chills. So lots of snow, a little bit cold temps. Everybody's like, stay home if you don't want to. We also, on this side of the state in Rapid City, since we're on the east side of the Black Hills, which that's where we are. So we have Rapid City is here. The Black Hills are right next to us. We have what's called a banana belt effect. So what happens is we get cold, it gets up to 40 degrees, the sun starts shining, we get more snow the next week. Then the week after that, we're back up to 40 degrees. So we have a lot of snow melting, which can also lead to some ice.
Ice,
yeah. So if anything gets shut down, it's usually because it's so icy in town, you shouldn't even be traveling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and we've had some instances of ice here in Texas to where we'll have an ice storm blow through, and especially I think in some cases it can get really bad on the freeways whenever, and they do. I mean, TxDOT does a good job of coming out, and they'll try to spray the chemicals on the overpasses and bridges and that type of thing, but you can hit black ice in certain instances here in Texas, especially if we just kind of get a thin layer of something in the far left lane. You're going really fast, and then you can spin out of control and get into an accident. And there have been some pretty bad ice storms. I remember one ice storm where we sat inside and we played cards like all day long because there's nothing else to do. We were kind of all stuck there, and it was me and my mom and a couple of girlfriends, and we just pretty much hung out the whole day. We had food and water.
Storms are fun,
Yeah.
No one's requiring you to be anywhere. Hanging out.
Yes. No, it was a lot of fun. But there have been instances where I've had to drive really slow. I remember in high school, I took a friend back to their side of town, and we had to drive really, really slow. And I could feel the car kind of shift, because the roads weren't in the greatest shape. And also when we get snow or ice here, they do a good job of the highways here. But when it comes to like your neighborhoods or like your basic streets or driveways, a lot of times if you can't get out of your neighborhood, then you can't go anywhere. So, and I'm sure it's probably similar in most places that see snow and ice and that type of thing too, because you kind of have to the snowplow, I think, probably only goes so far, right? Is that the case there?
And quite honestly, the snowplow is going to be taking care of the major roads, the bigger roads, the more important roads, and subdivisions are, when they get to them. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly the case. My daughter, who drives home from work, she'd be like, I was texting her one day, say, "I just be careful, the roads are going to get wet because the roads are going to get icy because they're wet." And she came home and she said, "Dad, there was no problems until I got to the damn subdivision, and then we had problems." So that's kind of the way it works.
Yeah, yeah. And then tell me a little bit about the summer. What are the summer months like for you guys? And do you see any severe weather? Because we do see a lot of that here in North Texas, and well, we see a myriad of different types of weather in the state of Texas because it's so big. But tell me a little bit about summer and heat and then severe weather.
Right. So one thing that we do have is, to kind of go forward here, is also a spring. We have a really nice springtime. That's when everything starts coming up. As things getting warm, we really enjoy that spring. Summertime, once summertime is growing, sometimes June can be the more the wetter month. We have more rain in June, but then it starts warming up in July. We actually do get some pretty hot temperatures. Usually around August is usually our hottest month. When that gets to be, there is usually a week or two of 100-degree temperatures. So it does get warm. We don't have the humidity here though, so it's a lot more, a lot since it's so much drier, so much easier to maintain than, I came from south of the corner of Minnesota where it was very humid. In the morning as a kid, and my bed was wet, and all my clothes were wet, just gross. So we don't have that. At least where the state, east side of the state, they're considerably more humid.
Okay.
So it's a lot warmer when it does get warm. It does get hot. But also for what we do, if it gets too hot, we can go up in the hills, and it's usually cooler up in the Black Hills by a few degrees. And we like to have a few hot days so we can go on the lake and
go to the lake. Yeah.
There. But yeah, our biggest what happens with us being next to the Black Hills also is we don't get very many tornadoes. They'll hop over.
Okay.
So anything about an hour, maybe even 30 minutes east of us and the rest of the state, they're going to be a little more in the plains area. They're going to have a little more tornado problems.
They're more tornado prone. Uh-huh.
Right. We have our biggest issue though is more or less along the lines of hail. So when the thunderstorms come over, that's when it's hot. It's hot one day, and all of a sudden you can just feel that, there's a storm coming over, and it'll dump hail on that front edge, and off it goes. We had like 4 significant hailstorms this year, total 2 of my cars. But in the 10 years or 12 years I've lived in the property I've lived in now, we've only once had that kind of problem. This year was just kind of one of those weird years as last year, as was everything else, right?
Yeah.
And that also comes to be like some of the farmers that have crops up northern South Dakota. The hail kind of goes right up over there, and that can destroy some of those crops. That's kind of our other problem, I guess, or other, we don't have hurricanes, but we certainly have some high winds and hail.
Right. So here in North Dallas, we do see a lot of severe weather in the springtime. You'll see tornadoes because that little section of North Dallas is in a part of Tornado Alley. But for the most part, I mean, I think there was one that hit Dallas. Usually if they're here, they're very isolated. So, when I say Dallas is a very large area, so if a tornado hit Dallas, I mean, it's just one little section of Dallas.
Yeah.
I mean, they're so concentrated. But I think that's what a lot of people don't realize. I've lived in Texas my entire life, and I have yet to be like scared out of my mind because we're in a tornado. Like, we're usually taking cover. The sirens are going off. We can see it's really windy and everything outside. But then usually afterwards, you go outside and, nothing, maybe some hail damage, like you were mentioning, will blow through. Hail is more of a bigger threat than any type of isolated tornado. We also see a lot of straight line winds. So we'll see a whole bunch of winds, and they'll say, oh, it was a tornado that blew over my fence. And I'm just like, no, that was actually a straight line wind that just came over and knocked over your fence.
You're trying to your mouth somewhere else. Yep.
Right. So it can, that can really affect, as far as cars, I think the worst hailstorm that I was in was a couple of years ago, and the hail was beating, like you could actually hear it like beating hard on the roof, and I was just like, is it going to come through? Like it was really, really bad. That was the worst, I think, hail experience that I had. The other hail experience was I was actually in my car on the highway, and I had my child with me, and I was scared out of my mind, driving slow, driving underneath. We were trying to get home, just to get out of that whole situation. But I think staying parked on the side of the road helps for sure, and trying to get under something like a tree or an overpass. And a lot of the cars were doing the same. They were pulling over, they had their hazard lights on, and you were just kind of waiting it out, instead of trying to drive through, especially if you got caught in it. I would say for the most part, our weather forecasters really over exaggerate whenever there's severe weather. So you could hear the sirens going off, and it like nothing happened. And that's 9 times out of 10, that's what it's like. There was one Christmas that it was really hot, and I was like, had this funny feeling like, oh, something bad is about to come,
Oh, it's got that little feel in the air.
Yep. Way too warm for Christmas. Yeah. And I was wearing shorts, and I was just like, this is so weird. This is not usually how December is. And so sure enough, like the day after Christmas, we had some pretty major tornadoes hit, and we were taking cover in my mother-in-law's house under the stairs. Now in Texas too, and we can talk a little bit about this, the houses don't have basements because the soil can't support that. And so people are like, what? You live in Tornado Alley and there's no basement? I'm just like, no, the ground we have the soil is mainly clay because, part of it used to be underwater. And so the soil can't support that basement. Now, are there older buildings that have it? Yes. Can you have a storm shelter built like in your garage? Absolutely. Yes. My brother-in-law has one in Oklahoma. I would say Oklahoma probably sees a lot more severe weather than any part of Texas would ever dream. I mean, they see it all. They see lots of tornadoes. They see, it's just a lot. Like as soon as you go into Oklahoma, it's just, I feel like you get snow, you get ice, you get everything there. Now, closer to the coast, like if you live in Houston, Galveston, that type of area, you are prone to hurricanes during certain parts of the year. And it is more humid there than it is in other parts of the state. Here in Dallas-Fort Worth, you're going to see a lot more dry heat, very similar to South Dakota. And I think that's also just attributed to the fact that we're further away from bodies of water. So the closest body of water for us is going to be the Gulf of Mexico, right? We do have a couple of lakes that are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but I would say rarely, is that small body of water going to actually affect the humidity in that area. We do see some humid days every now and again, but they're usually very rare and few and far in between.
And then the days you walk outside and it's like, wow, it's humid out here. And it's probably like 60% humidity. And it's like, whoa.
That's probably more like when I was in college, I went to Texas A&M, and that was in College Station. And I will say that there were some days where my hair just went. It gets really humid the further you go south. I would say, since Austin's further south, they're going to see more humidity just because they're so much closer to the Gulf there, right, and to the ocean.
Right.
But Texas is all dry, most for that part. And then also, once you get closer to like El Paso on your way to New Mexico, that's more of a desert climate too. So people need to consider that if you're thinking about moving to El Paso, that's a desert. The Dallas-Fort Worth area is more plains. Then you get to see more trees in East Texas. I mean, Texas has pretty much every landform except volcanoes.
South Dakota is pretty similar because we have on the west side, you've got the Black Hills.
Okay.
And dividing the state in half is the Missouri River. So we was talking about West River and East River, which are about as different as, we shouldn't really be north of South Dakota. It should be east and west, really. But west, you'll see a lot more. It's more ranch land. It's more breaks. It's more rough country. You're not going to see as much farmland. Once you cross the river, the humidity starts. It's like immediately. But that's as you get closer to Minnesota, you got land of lakes over there. So you've got lots of little lakes everywhere.
Yeah.
So plains after from Missouri River east. And then you've got a lot of different, it's more of a farmland. You'll see corn and soybeans all over the place.
Mm.
And that's where the farm is on that side of the state. So we were up north. My son is going to college in Madison, South Dakota, which is about half an hour north of Interstate 90 on the east side of state. And there's actually a lake there called Lake Madison, which is a pretty nice sized lake. And
Yeah.
we were looking around, and there are actually $1.5 million homes on Madison Lake in Madison, South Dakota, which is a town of 1,000 people when school's in session.
Yeah.
It's just, but yet on the lake, there's $1 million homes. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah. I'm guessing it's very similar to College Station. So College Station, for those of you who don't know, that's where the Texas A&M University is. It's one of the major universities in Texas. And for that university, whenever there's no football and whenever there's no college in session, like you go to the mall, no one's there. Like that's the best time to go shopping for Christmas gifts is when nobody's there, and you can just go into the mall and get what you need and then leave. But then when the students are there, it's just there's a lot more people. Is it similar in Madison?
Yeah, in Madison, I think it's that way. Similarly, in Spearfish, South Dakota, that's where Black Hills State University is. And I know when school is not in session, it's a lot quieter of a town than when it is. So
yeah,
we don't have a lot of very big universities in the state of South Dakota. But the universities are very popular. South Dakota State University in Brookings, University of South Dakota in Yankton. They're all kind of in smaller towns. So they're college towns, really. But they're very kind of, I guess, we're going this way. They're very good universities for the state, and they're very personable, local, and they really do a very good job of supporting the state of South Dakota while doing what they have. I know my daughter is going to go to South Dakota School of Mines and Technology here in Rapid, and that's one of the most affordable engineering schools in the country that has a pretty good rep for where it's at. So.
Yeah, no, that's good. Affordability is nice. So speaking of affordability, let's kind of shift a little bit to the housing market, because when people think about Texas or South Dakota as options, they need to know, well, is it more expensive or less expensive? So I'll let you go ahead and start.
Right. So in the Rapid City area, especially, we're looking at $200,000 is going to get you just started into something. Really is kind of where we're at. If you're looking for a 1,800 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, you're going to want to have about the $200,000 to get going in something. You will have smaller homes that will be under that. And of course, as you get into certain areas of town, you get closer to 250, 300. It is crazy. You have to see how things are. Prices have been going up this past few years, actually. And the same thing in Sioux Falls, the other big town on the other side of the state. I know that they have similar scenarios where their price points are about the same, and maybe even a little higher depending on where you are in the city. As you get into the Black Hills, you're looking at potentially spending considerably more money for a property because it's got Black Hills in front of it, so therefore it's usually more expensive. So that's where things start at. As you get into $400,000 to $500,000, there's considerably more options. Our market's been kind of crazy this past year, where anything under 300 anymore is gone within days, and you're not going to see it unless you're ready and jumping on it right away. So double offers, that kind of thing. But to answer your question about basements, basements are pretty popular. We have a lot of split level type properties, a lot of ranches with basements. Not as many 2 stories. I know you've got a lot of more 2 stories in Texas, but we'll have more of a basement scenario. Usually your city lot's going to be about a 0.25 acre lot. Of course, you do have a lot more properties in other subdivisions with bigger lots, but if you're looking at that standard $200,000, $250,000 home, you're looking at about a 1/4 acre lot at the most. So does that kind of put it all together what you're thinking?
I was like, that's actually really nice. Most of here in Texas or in Dallas, there's certain parts. I think Texas is just all over the place. But Because Austin right now, pricing is really inflated with everyone moving to that area. That's a very hot area. You've got a university there, a major university in the town already, which already kind of, gives you some issues with that. And then because you've got the influx of students whenever school's in session, on top of the normal residents that live there. Maybe they work at Google, maybe they work at Apple. A lot of tech companies will headquarter there. Elon Musk recently moved. He has, I think, in Austin.
Yeah.
And so you've got a lot of tech companies and businesses moving to Austin because it's beautiful. I mean, it really is. Austin is a very beautiful city. I think they're having some issues with some of their infrastructure, and so traffic is terrible. From when I've talked to everyone, they've always said, "Oh, traffic in Austin is terrible. If you're trying, it's going to take you a long time to get to downtown from where I'm at or where I'm going to purchase a home." And I know that, they're seeing ridiculous. Their market is just ridiculous right now. If I had to move to Austin, it would be a nightmare to try to to try to navigate that. San Antonio, you're going to get a little bit more affordability there. San Antonio is more of they have a lot of like ROTC, Navy, Army, like Air Force influence in that particular area. I think there's a couple of bases there, if I'm not correct. So mistake me if I'm wrong. If you're listening to this, don't take my word for that. So I'm not 100%
near there.
Do what?
Isn't Abilene, Texas near there?
No, Abilene's further north.
Because I know so Rapid City has the Ellsworth Air Force Base, which is the Air Force Bomber Squadron, and
Okay.
Ellsworth is the other one. Or Ellsworth and Abilene are the two bomber squadrons for the B-1s. And so I have clients that they've got houses in both locations, and they're all flipping back and forth. And
yeah, and I want to say that Abilene they're more in the panhandle. So you know how Texas is shaped, like it's flat and then it's down, and then you have the river, right, that separates Oklahoma from Texas. The Red River, is it the Red? Yeah, the Red River, because they call it the Red River rivalry when they play football against each other.
Yeah.
So that is more of in the panhandle. So if you can grab that little, section at the top, that's like the handle of the pan of Texas. And they do see a lot of snow there. Housing is more affordable in Abilene than some of the other major cities. The four major, I guess, let's see, 1, 2, 5 major, I would consider, well, okay. So we've got El Paso. El Paso is very, very affordable, but it is a desert. It's beautiful, but it's a beautiful desert. So we'll just put it that way. That's El Paso. And then you have Dallas and Austin are very similar in the fact that, you've a lot of tech influence, a lot of tech companies there. In my opinion, Dallas is better because the infrastructure is better. And whenever there's a big need for a new road, the city usually takes that into consideration and tries to expand. Now, certain cities around Dallas may or may not do that as well, but I do know that we were having some issues with a road in McKinney, and they've proposed a couple of different plans to take care of that traffic issue, which is really nice because they know that area is growing and expanding in that section of McKinney. And then what was I going to say? The other similarities, I guess, well, we have a pro sports team. So we've got basketball, football, hockey, a soccer team, probably a couple soccer teams. And then what was I going to say? Just like all the major sports, you can go see a concert for a pretty affordable price in Dallas. You can do similar things in Austin, but Austin doesn't have like a pro football team. They just have the Longhorns, which is the university there. So you can, I guess, cheer for your Longhorns if that's your thing. And then the other thing about, I guess, Dallas too, there's more than one place or more than one location where a lot of these companies are moving to headquarter. So we have the North Dallas sector, which is close to Plano, and there's an area there. And then you have downtown Dallas, which there are still some companies that headquarter in that area, but most of the newer ones are actually in North Dallas, which is nice because you don't have to take that trip all the way into downtown to just get somewhere. And even some of the surrounding cities and suburbs, they kind of engulf each other. So it never feels like you leave the city until you go probably about like an hour to an hour and a half outside of town. Even when we were trying to see Jupiter and that whole alignment thing, we were trying to go outside and see it. And we looked outside and we were like, we don't see anything. And we're just like, we're too close to the city. So we drove for like 30 minutes. And then we still couldn't see anything. And I was just like, okay, we need to just give up and turn around because there's no the closest middle of nowhere is going to be a little bit of a drive, and it was already late. So, and then you've got East Texas, which is very nice. They see more humidity there because they have the piney woods is a very big thing there. It's hilly, and you've got these beautiful pine trees over there. I have family that live in close to Tyler, which that's kind of the big city in a big little city in that area. And then you've got Houston, and sometimes people look at Corpus Christi too. I mean, Texas is so big. If whatever you wanted to do, you could do it and live close to what you wanted. I mean, we do have mountains. We do have, there's parts of but with mountains and basins and plateaus, and I mean, just any kind of landform. There's Enchanted Rock. There's that you can go out and go hiking. It's really pretty out there. Rolling Hills close to the Austin, San Antonio area. But as far as housing cost, I'm going to circle back into that. It depends. It just depends. I mean, if you want to be in the city and you want to be close to everything, it's going to cost you more money. If you're looking at a condo or a townhouse, it's usually less expensive to get into one of those. And those aren't as desirable as single family homes. On average, Dallas it's probably higher now, but the median price a little while ago was closer to $230, $240, and that's just for the city of Dallas, not anything else special. Now, are those going very quickly? Yes. And you can find a good deal the further you go outside of the city. I mean, you could probably find something for $100,000 or less than $100,000, but you're probably going to be closer to the middle of nowhere if you do something like that. And I'm sure it's very similar in South Dakota. Yeah, you can have a great house for $100,000 if you're like an hour or 2 hours away from the big city, right? So I think there's some
little podunk, South Dakota.
Yeah. So I think it just depends on what someone wants and what their goals are as to because we do have $1 million properties here. We have some that overlook the lake. We have like $1 million row or parts of town that are in Dallas and very affluent areas like Highland Park and University Park, which make up the Park Cities area. And I apologize too. I know that one of my people spoke to me and she's like, you gave the wrong information. And I said, yes, but I was looking at something different, and I apologize for that. And what it was I was looking at only homes that had a certain amount of square footage. So anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 square feet is where I put my parameters. And for that area, I should not have done that because most of those homes were larger than 2,000 square feet. And they were closer to like more of $1 million, that's getting into that neighborhood. You're probably paying close to $1 million. So I think it just depends on what you're wanting and what area you're trying to get into. And your budget is going to dictate, I think, a lot of that as well. Because, if you talk to either myself or Tristan, we can tell you what you can get for your money. And if you don't like it, then you try to find another major city, right? That's close by or that's further away. It just really depends on what your budget is. I think that's what most people, I guess, they focus in on the budget and on the numbers, which is good. But at the same time, I think it's important for you to realize that your budget's only going to get you so much. Like the house that you maybe really, really want is out of your budget, and you have to consider that. Well, do I sacrifice my budget, or do I sacrifice where I'm going to be located? And, or maybe I'm going to sacrifice that I'm not going to get the school that I exactly want, right? So there's always going to be kind of a fluctuation between, your price of your home, how much you're going to, the price of your home, which is how much you're going to pay for it, and then also where it's going to be located. And some people will even say, I only want a home that's 5 years old, right? So that also dictates a lot of where, and and I'll let you know if it's unattainable or not. Tristan will let you know if what you're asking for is.
We'll tell you you're crazy. We can do that. We're not wrong with that.
You can't be looking for a unicorn,
but
right.
So yeah, here in Rapid City, we do have a certain hilltop that's called Carriage Hills. You have a lot of $750 to $1 million, $1.5 million homes up there, which is kind of interesting because I used to, before I was doing real estate, I was installing hardwood floors. And so we spent a lot of time up on top of that hill, putting in teakwood and mahogany cherry floors up in that area. But the other thing is, when you get out into the hills, you can get into some pretty nice properties where you have that iconic log home in the Black Hills with the fireplace and the mantle and the big A-frame and the windows, and you've kind of got, like you see up here on the screen there that you just took away, the snow and the trees and all that kind of thing. So you've got all those things that you could have out on the hills as well. But like I mentioned, they get a little more expensive. But if you got a budget of $2 or $3 million, we can get you a pretty nice, even a big horse property with a horse barn out in the Black Hills, and we have those kind of things there too.
So how far away are you from, I guess, the actual city if you're in the Black Hills? And if you're in the Black Hills, are you more likely to have like propane and septic system and that kind of thing? Or are you still able to get some of the city water and sewer and trash pickup and all that stuff?
Yeah, very good question. So yeah, anytime you go out too far out into the hills, except if there's going to be some subdivisions that are within 15 minutes of Rapid City, and if the city goes out and grabs them, they're going to get their services out there. But if you get especially half an hour in the hills, for sure, you're looking at a private well, you're looking at septic, you're looking at propane. You may even be looking at internet being satellite or something not as desirable. The broadband isn't necessarily out there, and in some areas you might not have any signal at all. You might not have any service whatsoever. So all those are things that are certainly something to look into, and to make sure that you are okay with that, especially in our remote working environment. I've had a lot of people that have been looking for that remote property out in the hills. They don't see anybody. They've got a great view, but broadband internet ain't going to happen. And you're still going to be 20 minutes away from a city that has groceries. There's certain things that you're going to have to expect when you're living up in the Black Hills.
It's kind of a give and take. It's a give and take for sure. Then
right now, but there are areas in Rapid City that you have all your city services, you have your broadband internet that are basically in the foothills of the Black Hills. So you're not in there, but it feels like you've got the trees and it's got a good feel for it. And so there are areas there too that you can be still have everything that you want and get.
Okay.
But can you imagine the most popular part of Rapid City? That's
the foothills, yeah.
Of course, I probably should throw some bones at Sioux Falls. Sioux Falls is bigger than Rapid City. They're on the east side of the state. They're a little more business minded. Amazon is going to build a warehouse up there, I guess, from my hearing. Okay. So they'll have some good employment going on up there. They're a little bit more of the, like I mentioned, the business type of city. So they'll have a few more flights up to Minneapolis and some more queuing, things like that. But
yeah, where are the airports? I mean, are there a lot of airports, or is there only, like in Dallas, we have two major airports. We have Love Field and DFW. What are some of the airports that are close by if people are interested in them?
So flying out of South Dakota sucks. We've got the Rapid City's got a regional airport, and then Sioux Falls has a regional airport. And basically what you're doing is you're flying to a hub. So you're either flying to Denver, to
Twin Cities,
St. Louis, not St. Louis, but Salt Lake, so you're
Yeah.
flying one of the main ones to get somewhere, and then you can go somewhere. So
Okay, so there's no direct flight.
not usually.
Not
There are some Allegiant goes straight to Las Vegas. They go straight to Arizona. There are a couple of straight flights that they've come up with in the past couple years. Like I think there's a San Francisco flight during the summer and a
Okay.
South Carolina flight during the summer. And I think we can sometimes we can get to Dallas or Chicago on the flight, but it just depends on how it flows. But
And what plane you choose? What plane you choose, right?
You're flying to get somewhere, you got to go to the hub first. Which you guys talk about flying places, and we're like, it's cheaper for us to drive.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about a little bit of food and culture. I'll let. Well, you went. I guess you just you. So I will start us off. Okay, so when it comes to food and culture, Texas is a very friendly and welcoming state to live in. I've lived here my whole life, so I guess I'm a little bit. I don't have the same perspective as other people would. And I've talked to some of my friends that have moved, like Liana. She was on one of my other live streams that she grew up in. Gosh, I can't even think of it. So Liana grew up in the north. It wasn't Chicago, Ohio. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. Oh. She grew up in Ohio, and when she was moving here to Texas, she was talking a lot about like how Southern hospitality, like it is a thing here. So when someone says yes, ma'am, or yes, sir, they're not trying to be rude. They're not trying to say that you're old. It's just kind of a thing here in Texas, that everyone's courteous. Everyone's opening doors for other people. It doesn't matter if you're a guy holding open a door for a girl. It doesn't matter if you're a girl holding open a door for a guy. I mean, you're people in general are friendly. I mean, are there going to be some not so friendly people? Of course. I mean, you're going to get that anywhere you go. But for the most part, Texans are very friendly. They're very religious and religious based, because you are in the Bible Belt. Texas is a part of the Bible Belt. We have the other thing about our culture is that I think we're pretty open to new things, new experiences, new foods. I almost feel like Texas, especially even parts of Dallas and some of the big metro cities, you have an influx of a lot of people from not only the rest of the United States, but all over the world. I mean, we have people that are moving here from England. We have people that are moving here from India, moving here from, a lot of people are moving out of California. So a lot of Californians that are wanting to relocate here. I think some of that has to do with the similarity in the climate that you see in Southern California to North Texas. We're kind of on the same latitude level as a lot of that. So you're going to see a similar climate that you would in California. I think another big draw to our culture is that we're not going to trash talk anyone because they're from somewhere different, right? So we're going to be open and welcoming to them, and just be as friendly and nice as possible, because we feel like we would want you to treat us the same way. It's kind of the golden rule, right? Treat others as you would want them to treat you. And that's kind of ingrained in us, I think. And manners are a huge part of that. As far as food goes, since we're so close to Mexico, we do get the treat of having not only authentic Mexican food, because there are a lot of people that move here from Mexico, and they will bring their food and culture. But we also get the benefit of creating our own Tex-Mex, so to speak, to where we have a combination of the Texas and Mexican heritage kind of combined in things like tacos and chalupas and, anything that's deep fried. Usually it's, a Texas thing. When you go to the State Fair of Texas, if you notice, a lot of things are deep fried. You can have a deep fried Oreo, a deep fried Twinkie. You can have deep fried Coke, and they have contests and stuff like around this whole deep fried thing, because I guess it's Southern and I guess it's popular. So it's a big part of our culture here. And not only do we have Mexican food, I mean, we have great my husband and I will seek out Mediterranean food. Like that's our new thing that we'll go and try out different Greek places, different Mediterranean places. And we'll try a whole bunch. I'm not a big sushi person, but I do know that there are some sushi places that are really good. And then you've got we have a lot of German influence too in certain cities. Even the closer you get to New Braunfels and that area, which is close to in between Austin and San Antonio. There's a lot of like kolaches are kind of a big deal. They have these little German kolache stops and shops. So we're kind of a big melting pot of people here, which is really nice because you do get to see other perspectives, other, I guess, different parts of culture from all over the world here, which is a really nice benefit, I think. Now, what about you? I want to know what is the most popular like thing to eat in South Dakota?
Well, hot dish, y'all. It's a hot dish.
What's hot dish? I don't know what this is. You have to indoctrinate me.
Part of this is from my upbringing. My mom was Norwegian, and Norwegians in Minnesota had hot dishes. Hot dishes are casserole, so you throw everything in there and you throw it in the oven, and then you all get together and have hot dish, and you share hot dishes, and if someone is sick, you take them a hot dish. So we in Minnesota, as you get into South Dakota, we got a lot of European influences, so Germany, Dutch, Scandinavian. So we have a lot of really hearty, meaty foods. Meat and potatoes is very, since we have an agricultural state, a lot of cattle, a lot of horses. We're pretty big on meat potatoes, and so that's a pretty important part of our diet and who we are. And additionally to that, if you get into Rapid City, we do have some nice. There's a Himalayan place. So there's been some places that have kind of cropped up lately. There's some people that have moved in from Turkey, and they've got a turkey shop or some sandwiches and stuff. And that's been doing very well. There's a number of there. We do have a number of Chinese restaurants and that kind of stuff. We don't get really crazy in a lot of other different places because we're quite a bit isolated. We don't have as many people coming in. I think the biggest influence is from the different airmen that come to the Air Force Base. So we'll see different people coming in there. But we have our selection of great local places, steaks and pizza, and what's the other place down there? So we have some nice Italian food, and we have a lot of a good variety of everything that you'd want, but maybe not quite your Tex-Mex barbecue in the back. The truck kind of thing. So
barbecue is a big deal. We have like lots of cook-offs, and I think there's a chili cook-off that we have going on in certain instances. That's kind of big around the football season. What about sports? I mean, do you have I know that you don't have a professional football team, correct? So what are some of the sporting things that you have in South Dakota, or that what do you do with sports? Okay, professional and collegiate. We'll talk a little bit about both.
Yeah, you have to find some other team. Go somewhere else. Okay. So, since I grew up in Minnesota, I'm a Vikings fan. We have a lot of it's kind of more Vikings, Broncos, but there's a lot of Seahawks. There's a lot of all over the place. Certainly, I've seen a lot of different ones. A lot of Packer fans. I'm not sure why, but
Yeah.
So as far as football is concerned, baseball is the same thing. It's wherever you grew up, whoever you like. We do have bars that get together and they have the different sports being played. Our universities are smaller, so we don't have the big, Texas football game. That doesn't happen. A couple of years ago, South Dakota State University got into a basketball, one of the sweet, what is it called? March Madness.
March Madness.
Yeah, SDSU got into that, which is amazing for South Dakota. That was kind of cool to see that. But other than that, within Rapid City, we have an ECL, a semi-professional hockey team called the Rush, which is one of our biggest sports kicks. Everybody goes down to the Civic Center, watches the Rush play. watch them get into fights, etc., that kind of thing. So that's pretty much it for our sports, other than we do like our high school football or high school sports. Everybody gets involved in that. But anything other than that, it's, find your team and hopefully you can go there once in a
Cheer
while.
on. Yeah. Make sure. Yeah. Hopefully none of your rivals are in the same bar as you, right?
Or if you enjoy it, you enjoy it. Some people enjoy that. So,
Oh yeah. That's true.
usually there's specific bars for your specific team though. So you just got to make sure you go to the right one.
Oh, okay. That's good, and that's important to know. I mean, that's like a need to know thing. Yeah, when you move to South Dakota, make sure you go to the right bar. I think here in Texas too, when it comes to sports, I mean, not every major city is going to have it all, except for maybe Dallas. I'm biased, right? Um, so shameless plug there for Dallas, but so Dallas, you've got your professional hockey teams. You've got the Rangers in the baseball team, and then we've got Dallas Mavericks here, and then you also have so like Austin. And there's some major universities that are around, like University of North Texas and SMU, which SMU is now part of the Big 12, which is one of the bigger schools there, which is kind of nice to see that move there. But I would say a lot of your major universities are going to be further south, like Texas A&M or further west. If you go to Texas Tech, usually Texas Tech, Texas A&M, University of Texas. Those are kind of the big three when it comes to collegiate, either football. I know that A&M has a big soccer team, and they have a baseball team that a lot of people like to go to. Women's soccer is very big at A&M. I know that they have like more fans than I think the men's, which is kind of funny. And then you've got, I think in Austin, they have kind of a melting pot there of like food and culture.
Oh, yeah.
Too, because you have so many people moving there from all parts of the U.S. and the world. So that's kind of cool to see that there in Austin. San Antonio, you see a lot of history too. That's where the Alamo is. And you see a lot of the missions too, where they, like in California, like along the California coast, that they were building the missions. Like you'd see a mission, and then a little bit further down the coast would be another mission, a little bit further down the coast, another mission. So there are a couple of different missions within the San Antonio area that you can go to and you can visit, and they've got the river walk and things that you can do there recreationally, which makes it really, really nice. So you don't have to go out of state to get to something too, which is really, really cool. The other thing about the sports teams, so San Antonio has basketball. They don't have a football team in San Antonio, but the Spurs are really big there. So if you're a Mavericks fan and you don't want to like cheer on the Mavs whenever you're at a Spurs game, because you might get a little bit of rivalry there.
Yeah.
And then in Houston, Houston has their own professional football team. They've got the baseball team. I'm not sure about hockey. I'd have to look that one up. I'm not a big hockey person, so I don't follow. I just know the Dallas Stars, and that's about it. That's probably that Dallas Stars, and maybe another one. Maybe someone in the chat can help us. You can just chat if you know about any other Texas sports that I'm forgetting. Oh, and the other thing too is because football is such a big thing, you see these mega $1 million stadiums that are being built just for the high school kids. It's a little bit outrageous. And we have in homecoming, I don't know if you have this too, but the girls, they'll wear these extravagant little big flowers. They're called mums. And they're like long strings of ribbon, and you've got all types of things attached to it. And they're like $100. It's ridiculous. Like when you go to a Texas homecoming, you'll see, like everyone's wearing a mum. You'll see they have like a special court, and then you have the guys wearing the garters on their arm, and that type of thing. Do you have anything tradition-wise as far as like sporting or football that you have noticed in South Dakota?
Not to that extent, Mike.
Not to that degree. Okay.
Of course, my kids were not into sports really at all, so we didn't really get a feel for a lot of that. And then when they were out of high school, they're like, I don't care about homecoming. Can I just get out of school, please? So that was kind of their whole thing. So, but we do enjoy I think football is probably more popular one between football and basketball. I think are the big ones. Girls have a pretty decent volleyball team. Actually, the track and the wrestling teams have done really well as well.
What about hockey? I mean, is hockey as big a thing?
We don't have a sports or a high school hockey team. There's just our some professional one that I mentioned, but that's about it. A lot of kids enjoy doing being part of a hockey league. That's kind of a big thing. Being big in soccer, we have a lot of parks in Rapid, especially. So you can be involved in the soccer, involved in whatever sport you want to be involved in. They have indoor soccer during the winter time, and of course hockey all the time. So
yeah. So do you go, I mean, do you see a lot of like ice fishing and like, what is it called when you swim in like really cold water?
Stupid.
What did you say?
Stupid.
Oh, no, they have like a professional thing where you swim in cold water. Maybe that's more of like a Canadian thing.
Yeah, I think so. Too far north. Yeah, no, ice fishing is very, very popular. And I have a client that's been showcasing his fish that are, that's bigger than the screen, but they're pretty big. And so he's really been enjoying that. I mean, they go out and they get the big heights, and they can do all sorts of crazy stuff. But yeah, I mean, we're also, you can go in the wintertime and you can go climb and see, get into some caves where some water has come down in front and that's frozen over. So you can go to some ice caves. Even go climbing on the ice. They get the picks and the.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Ice climbing. Winter hiking is amazing. Go snowshoeing. It's great to go snow skiing. We've got Terry Peak, which has snowboarding and snow skiing. We have some feeling. So there's just lots of activities winter-wise, and not including the summer-wise, that you can do. It's just a matter of getting the right clothing and enjoying and taking advantage of what's here, because there's a lot of things to do even during the winters, especially as you get out. And some people even do things like winter camping and
winter camping. That's a little bit dangerous. I mean, camping in general, I'm not a really big camper. I mean, I'll go glamping, which means you just stay in a cabin, and have like regular facilities.
Well, actually glamping areas in Rapid right after Mount Rushmore, and it's actually a big glorious tent is what it is. But if you want to do that, there's a massive vacation home rentals in Rapid. So we do that once or twice a year. We'll go rent a cabin for a weekend, enjoy the hot tub, just kind of get away for a while. And we've got our own little mini vacation, and we're only an hour away from away from home. That's an amazing thing we had this year, especially with COVID and everything happening. We're half an hour away from being on a hike all by ourselves. We're half an hour away from going camping, all these kind of things, since the Black Hills is just right there in our backyard. So that's the biggest thing that people have enjoyed about living in the city and living in the area, is just that proximity to the Black Hills and everything that's right there.
So how close is Terry Peak to everything? Because I love snow skiing. We've gone, when I was in high school, we would go at least once a year to Colorado. We were big Coloradian snow skiers. So how far away is Terry Peak? Tell me a little bit about that, for those of us that are maybe watching that want to know more about the skiing and what it's like, and how big does the base usually get? Does it see a lot of snow? And tell us more. We're curious about that.
I don't. No, I'm not a snow skier, so I don't know much about it. So, okay. But you can be Terry Peak is in Lead Deadwood area, which is about an hour away from Rapid City. It's pretty much an hour away from almost anywhere.
Okay.
Wherever you stay in Rapid, or wherever you stay in the Black Hills, unless you're really far south.
Okay.
But they'll usually have a good amount of snow. That's where you're going to get the most snow in the Black Hills. So even though we don't have snow in Rapid City, they'll have snow up there. They'll make some snow. They've usually got a pretty good base.
Okay.
And they'll have a good amount of skiers there, snowboarding.
Snowboarding.
Pretty popular place.
Do they? Is it a pretty big mountain to go ski? Because I know that in Colorado, because I've gone a couple of times, there's like smaller resorts like Purgatory, and then you've got the bigger ones like Winter Park, where you could spend like a week there and not go down every single trail. How big is Terry Peak compared to some of these other
Yeah,
places.
some of the places in the Rockies, there's really no comparison
Okay.
as far as peak is concerned. It's one bigger mountain in the Black Hills,
See
but
the whole mountain in a day?
you have different runs on it.
Yeah.
So
Did you see the mountain, the whole mountain in a day? What do you think? You could
Oh,
see the whole trail, all the trails in a day? Okay.
probably. I can imagine you could do it.
Okay.
But it's not as, those Colorado ones are so huge.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know that they have runs quite that extraordinary.
Right. But there's still a good mix. Do they have like a beginner slope and that type of thing?
Yeah, you can. In fact, I've looked at it because now that we don't have 4 kids, like four kids times lift tickets times, that's a lot of money. Yeah. So that's probably why we never went. So now that the kids are old, we can go do our own thing. So I was looking at that, and for $75, you can get a beginning lesson and time on the slope and all that kind of stuff. So
your lift tickets included in that 75? Your lift tickets, is that included in the 75?
Right, for the lift tickets for the training hill, and then for an extra $30, you can get a lift ticket to the rest of the hill, so you can keep
the larger part of the mountain. Okay. Well, that's okay. I envy that. I'll have snow skiing envy then, Tristan.
I really want to go this year just to do something different. I actually managed to procure a snowboard from a listing that, well, they left it. So
you got a snowboard. So snowboard. Have you tried to snowboard?
No, I haven't. I haven't tried any of that. So it'll be. We have. We're water people, so we go water skiing a lot. We got a boat, water skiing and water skiing. But that's I know it's a whole different experience, but
it is.
Just skiing, right? I can ski. I can do both, right? Yeah, we'll see.
You should be good. If you know how to water ski, snow skiing is a lot. In my opinion, it's a lot easier. But so tell us a little bit more about what you can do in the summer as well, because we talked a little bit about the winter stuff that you can do. So you can actually go skiing and snowboarding and enjoy that. I'm sure they have a lot of cross country places, so you can go cross country skiing too, because it's a little bit more flat. In fact,
there's a trail, a 100-mile trail, I believe, down all the way through the hills. It's called Mickelson Trail, and it's a really well-designed trail that's I think about 3 feet wide. It's a very flat trail. And you could cross-country ski down that all day long. Which is also a great thing to do in the summer. Some people have gone and they've gone from one part to the next part and just, throughout the summer, hike that Untitled Trail. It's a beautiful location to go biking in the fall. My sister and dad usually do that. They'll come up with some amazing fall foliage colors and that kind of thing, biking down the Mickelson Trail. But we're, as you can imagine, we're big outdoorsy people. So it's camping, it's fishing, it's hiking. We went rock climbing once with a friend. That was kind of fun.
Cool.
There are we have 3 or 4 reservoirs in the area, so you can go laking and then, like I mentioned, the east side of South Dakota, there's lakes all over the place. So boating and fishing is all big over there as well. And then if you're tired of doing all that, then there's always the activities such as Mount Rushmore and Crazy Horse. They've got a few of the other attractions have a like a smaller roller coaster, and there's a rope climbing course and other things like that are a lot of fun around the area.
And this is a question that I have to ask you too, because I've seen some crazy documentaries, and so I apologize. But what about are there any in the winter? Because I hear about these bears that in wildlife and stuff that can get into the property or get into your whatever, can break down the door and is there anything crazy that's happened with wildlife or whatnot during the winter? I'm sure even in the summer too, you don't want to hit a moose
no, we're not that. That's Rockies. We don't have moose.
No moose. Okay.
No moose. If you want to see a bear, you go through the drive-through wildlife park called Bear Country USA.
Okay.
Although we did see a post of someone videoing a bear loose running through a field just south of Rapid City, but you have a chance to be running into that. We do have, herds of elk. We've got, there are some mountain lions, I think, which would be the biggest danger is coming across the mountain lion. But other than that, and the rattlesnakes, we usually go walking throughout the Black Hills without a problem. We went camping, actually we went backpacking, and slept on top of a mountain on a rock, and we didn't worry about our food didn't take care of it like that. We're worried about the mosquitoes that happen to be running around more than anything.
Yeah.
So, like if you went to that in Yellowstone, you have to be concerned about bears and all these other animals.
Yeah.
We don't have as many dangerous critters around as other places do, which is nice. It makes it, but there have been a number of rattlesnake bites, and some people have got onto the mountain lions at certain bad times. That's about the extent of that.
Okay. Is there any way to avoid the rattlesnakes? I mean, you can hear the rattle and you're like, okay. What about are there things to do? Because I'm not, like I said, I'm not really an outdoorsy kind of person. What could I do if there was a mountain lion in front of me? Are you trained enough to I don't know. Just I'll let you answer.
Not that I'm not trained in it, but it's something that you
Get some
away slowly and don't make a lot of sudden moves. Be non-threatening, the basic 1, 2, 3s of wildlife management, I think. So. But and the rattlesnake's the same thing. I mean, there's places that they more likely hang out, so you just kind of be aware of what's surrounding, be aware of your surroundings. But I've very rarely seen any when we've gone walking, and we went hiking quite a bit this last summer. So but they're out there right here. So.
Yeah, I have skiing envy. I'm such a ski envy person now. Tristan, you've made up my mind. Maybe I should retire in South Dakota.
Now you have to go and take pictures and send them to you. How's this one? I feel good. This is cool.
I know. Oh man, yeah. Just to be have an affordable place to live that's close to an hour away from going skiing. I mean, that's really incredible. And I know that there are parts of Colorado and whatnot that are nice too, but I don't think you get the same affordability there. So let's talk a little bit about taxes too, because here in Texas, we don't have a state income tax.
Can you see my screen now?
Ooh, I can. I'm going to add it. Let's see. Oh yes, look at those mountains.
So we decided one day to go snowshoeing, and we were going to go up see a popular falls called Spearfish Falls or Rough Falls. And so you can see the snowmobilers right here, and just the whole meadow here with the river running through it. That was about 3 feet of snow that day, and it was a fun little walk that we went through. But then you can see as we got up closer here, some of we were playing cameramen at the time, so we had a lot of this ice.
Oh wow, yeah.
I think it was a good hike. But this is some of the stuff you can see when you're hiking in the Black Hills in the winter.
Wow, that's really pretty. Wow. I'm jealous. You made me jealous, Tristan.
Good. Since I'm losing the weather war between South Dakota and Texas, I could add something to make it look cool. So
right, that's right.
Pour all the stops I got.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about affordability. So affordability wise, and if you're watching this and you have a question, just a reminder, the chat is open. If you want to, ask us any questions about Texas or South Dakota, we're here to answer them. But as far as affordability, does South Dakota have a state income tax? Because that's a pretty big question for people.
Right. Yes. So we're no South Dakota state income tax. We do have sales tax on everything. Even the realtors get a sales tax.
What about food? Like you get at the grocery store, does that have a sales tax associated? Everything
has.
Okay.
Except for weird minor ones that are, some charitable stuff, I think is none. But majority of everything is going to be sales tax. And then, property taxes are a little higher than other states that have the, that have a state income tax because, hey, we have to have money somehow. So those are our two downsizes, but we have no in-state income tax. There's no corporate income tax. It's very business friendly. There's not a lot of things on that side that we really have an issue with. So.
Okay. So here in Texas, most of you know, Texas does not have a state income tax. And so we do have higher property taxes. I've seen some, like in Dallas, they're hovering right around just above 2, so 2.2, 2.3%. Now, in certain areas that you are like new construction, you may have an extra tax called a mud pit or a PUD. So you make sure that you ask me those questions if you're interested in new construction. But so you may have extra taxes for certain things, or if you're close to a community college, then you're going to pay a little bit into that community college, raising your taxes just a smidge as well. If you go further out, your taxes are going to be less. Also, we do have discounts for disabled, so full and partial disabled vets get a discount. If you're over 65, you get a discount on your taxes. And if you live in the property, you can get what we call a homestead exemption. So you can't use it for an investment property, but we have a homestead exemption. It takes a little bit off of that tax for you as well, which is nice. What are you kind of seeing? And I'm sure that there are other parts of Texas that are more rural that will have like a really low, property tax. So, you could see it, 1% or less in some more of those rural areas. And I think when you get closer to the city, the taxes start to get higher as a reflection of everything that the city offers you. So tell us a little bit about South Dakota.
Yeah. So, and I think it's similar here, where the more rural areas probably have less tax base, but I haven't really studied that to know what it is. When I did my cost versus cost of living in Rapid City video, the properties that I showcased I think I showcased 3 different price points, and they were averaging about 1.3% for a property tax. Now, as values are rising in Rapid City, which they are,
yes. Everywhere else, yeah.
Dollars of value have gone up this past year. Of course, those are just going to go up as we keep going. That 1.3% might remain the same, but more value, more taxes, off we go with life. So that's kind of how things roll with where that is concerned. But I've seen that the tax rates used to be cheaper in one county versus the other, but they've kind of now kind of all are the same. It's really been about normalized between one city versus the other city isn't a lot different tax wise. So there's not a lot of benefit in that scenario, one place versus another. But always into, because that of course makes a difference on your payment if you're getting a loan. So make sure you ask us about those questions as well, because we can certainly take a look at that. And if you're saving a couple $100 a month from taxes from one place to another, it might be worth the other spots.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If you can save a little bit of money by where you're trying to find your home, that's a good tip as well. So lastly, I want to talk a little bit about jobs. I know you've hinted at it a little bit in South Dakota, where what's kind of I know farming is a big thing. My pen pal that I was talking to you about earlier, her parents owned a farm. And so I know they had several, lots of land that they used. I think she gave me a picture one time of a field of sunflowers. So they were farming sunflowers, and then they had some corn.
Right here, you go driving down the state. I took pictures. They're amazing.
Yeah. So, it's really cool.
Agriculture is huge in the state. The next pieces then are we do a lot of there's a mining, there's a manufacturing piece of it as well. Natural resources. So we'll have a lot of natural gas, that kind of stuff. As you get into Rapid City, because we have a trade radius of 150 miles, because we've got a bunch of small towns everywhere. So you've got Rapid City over here, you've got Sioux Falls over here, and there's not a lot of big stuff in between. So all the little stuff around it kind of comes into Rapid. So that means Monument Hospital is a regional hospital in town. So that's a big employer. The Sam's Club and Walmart for the shopping is a big employer. The tourism industry is huge, of course, because Black Hills and everything else we talked about as well. Even the winter, there's events in the winter. There's a lot of different things that happen in town, so that attributes to that tourism. And then right with that tourism is the hospitality. So your hotels, your motels, your restaurants, your attractions, all those other things. So if you're involved in one of those transactions, you probably get a good chance to be in a position for a job, or make sure you'll find a job. Unfortunately, unlike Texas down there as our tech job is something that we're working on getting more of. But a
That's
lot of
good.
times we'll have a startup that gets going really good and have a nice startup, and then of course a bigger company comes and buys it and they takes them away. So our tech jobs aren't as big as they could be, except like Sioux Falls. I've had some people that said, "Well, I'd love to live in Redwood City, but Sioux Falls is where the jobs are at, especially the tech jobs." So they're going to go over there. So, but that's kind of where we're at as far as the job employment is good.
Okay.
Our unemployment rate. I just did this video, so I know this information. Our unemployment rate right now is about 5.3%. So we're doing really good this year, even though we're recovering from some of the COVID restrictions that happened earlier this year. But what we're getting caught up in that scenario too. So
Cool. So here in Texas, as far as jobs go, we do see a lot more tech, like I mentioned earlier, but I would say oil and gas is also another big part of our economy, because gas prices here are under $2. I think they're $1. Well, maybe I haven't looked lately, as you can tell. I'm kind of glazed over. My eyes are kind of glazed over, but probably close to $1.40. I'm so bad. So if you're from Texas and you're seeing this, just tell me what the gas prices are. But I know that they're well under $2 right now a gallon. So very, very inexpensive, which makes it nice. So the petroleum industry is really big, and it took a big hit, I think, during the pandemic because not everybody was driving. And we do get a lot of our gas and natural gas like from our own state, so we don't have to like outsource it from other places, which is I think what makes it a lot less expensive than other parts of the U.S. The other, aside from like you've got the tech and then you've got the petroleum and gas industry that's big here. What am I trying to think of what else is here? There is a big like medical, a lot of medical jobs, I think, because you got a lot of hospitals. So in Dallas, there is UT Southwestern, which is one of the big like teaching hospitals, very well known, very renowned there. And then there's an actual, like in downtown, there's a medical district that has 4 or 5, big hospitals, and that's just in Dallas. Every city outside of that, you're going to have several Baylor Scott and Whites. You're going to have so that's a popular chain is Baylor Scott and White. Another medical chain that we've got here is Texas Health Resources. So like we have Presby Dallas, Presby Plano, Presbyterian Hospital is a big thing. Medical City, we have several medical cities in different areas and different subsets and parts. Cool. Yeah. So there's a big, and then even in Houston, I know one of my friends, they're doing a lot of cancer research over at MD Anderson Hospital. That's a big research facility and hospital there. So Houston also has, I feel like there's jobs everywhere. If you needed a job, you could come and find it. Now I was trying to say home health has also become really, really big. I think bigger than a lot of people. I think they're starting to see a shift in retirement homes and people shifting more to home health in order to save costs. And my husband, he just jumped on and he said, gas prices here, $1.95. Thanks, babe. So if you're wondering about gas prices right now, they're $1.95. So under $2. So higher than what I thought they were. Apparently they
were nuts. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're at $2.25 a pure-ish, so it's not too much too worse. But I talked with a client from California today. They're at $4 a gallon over there, so I'm happy with my $2.25.
Yes. And I know that Buffalo Bucket was saying something, and I messaged them a little bit, but they just moved to a more rural part of McKinney. They love it. They're currently remodeling their home in Rowlett. And yes, I have family that live in Rowlett, and I'd be happy to help you sell your property if you are needing some advice or needing some help with that, I'd be happy to do that. And I already gave them my contact info so they can reach out to me. So yes, both Tristan and I do sell and help others purchase homes, just in case anyone was wondering or needing help in Rapid City, or if you need any other part of Texas, I have connections. If you need any other part of South Dakota, I'm sure Tristan has many connections to connect you to other realtors in those areas. So last call for those that are watching, if you have a burning question that you want to ask Tristan, like this is your last chance. No, we might have Tristan on later.
Like, why are you living up there in the cold? What's up with that? We just don't know how you guys can't living down there in the heat. We're just like, how do you guys do it? Why?
It's just like, it's opposite. So like in the summertime, it's kind of like your winter. So it's extreme heat, and you just kind of get in and out of, you lock yourself in the house with air conditioning versus locking yourself in the house with heating. So it's the similar concept as far as extremes go. But any other thing that you want to tell people about South Dakota while we have these last couple minutes we're trying to wrap up?
I think one of the things that we kind of passed over a little bit is you talked about your Southern hospitality. We have our Midwest hospitality. One thing I've noticed is I'll go walking down the bike path. I'm the person that's going to look you in the eye and smile and say hi. A majority of the people you'll say hi back, and you'll have that feel of somebody just wanting to say hi to you and be nice to you. Now, that being said, there's also a very much of a leave each other alone mentality. We're here to live our lives and leave the other person alone and live their life however they want. So there's not a lot of, for the most part, getting into each other's business necessarily. It's just, do what you want. If that's what you're going to do, fine. I'm going to do this over here, and wave as you go. So that's something that we really enjoy here in Rapid City, especially. One story to kind of emphasize that fact is I was just closing on a home. I was doing the walkthrough of the couple from California, and we were outside, and the neighbor pops by and starts talking, and he kept talking, and he was just all excited, and so the client's coming back in and says, I'm glad that he did that. That's amazing, because we're used to people coming home, closing the garage door, and you never see him again. And so they really appreciated having that communication. The neighbor was offering to help if you needed any help. Let them know. We have a big driveway, so we'll talk about how we're going to deal with the snow plow removal, all that kind of stuff. So that's what we have here in South Dakota across the board. You'll find people willing to really help you out in any way they can, but they're also going to leave you alone. So
yeah. But I mean, I think there's a little bit more intimacy too when you live, I think, in an area like South Dakota, as opposed to, I think, any other smaller community. You're going to have more of that intimate, which is good and bad, because you know everybody, but then everybody knows everybody's business too at the same time.
Right. And so to kind of complement that as well, is we rely on our neighbors as well. I mean, especially if you are in a farming community, your neighbor might be 3 miles down the road, but you rely on them to help feed your animals or to help take care of the kids at school, or all these different things, right? So and we have that, and a lot of the smaller towns around the Black Hills, like Hermosa and Belfouche, they each have their own community where they have their events, they do their things, and so it's a very good community feel. You feel like you're part of something, but you're not going to be, everything that happens is going to be something that you feel like you're be a part of, and it's very friendly and opening, as long as you're not going in there and trying to like difficult or change everything. Yeah, then it's a different story. But for the most part, it's like, glad you're here. We'll do everything we can to help you. Just let us know.
Yeah. I think you do get a similar feel here in Texas. Just people wanting to help each other out. There was actually one of my lenders that I always refer business and refer people to. He is like he loves to help other people in his direct community. So for example, like his neighbor going through a really bad situation, like he was there helping her out with, getting some stuff ready, right?
Yeah.
Then there was, someone that just lost a loved one, either, I think it was a spouse in this type of situation, just like going over there and asking how they're doing, if they're okay, checking up on them. There's a lot, especially in McKinney and a lot of these master plan communities, you'll have a lot of events and activities and things that will go on that will make you feel like you're more a part of that community. If you want to be that, if you want to be a part of it, and it's the choice is always that person, right? The community is what you make of it, just like anything else. But I think that's a good thing to leave with. And we may have Tristan on here later to talk more about the snow skiing and snowshoeing. I'll have to come visit. We'll have to take a family trip. We're up there. I'll talk to my husband. I know he's listening right now.
I'll show you places where no one else knows. Well,
yes, we'll get the VIP tour in South Dakota. So, and if you guys, vacation, if you want a vacation property or rental, like Tristan is your guy to call and ask, because that's probably another good investment if you want an Airbnb or anything like that.
Yeah, there's a whole development of properties like that up by Terry Peak, so you could have a cabin, spend time there, let us use it for free.
There you go. All right. Well, we're going to wave goodbye. We'll see you guys later. And Buffalo Bucket, we'll talk to you soon.